One of the biggest lingering questions that not only I have, but I'm sure a lot of you guys have as well, is the fact that will both sex equal anything? Will Jon Snow and Daenerys conceive a child? Will there be a dragon to replace these two current dragons just in case they die and Westeros is left in the hands of, well, not too much certainty? Can Daenerys get pregnant? Let's discuss. I am having a major giveaway on this channel where there will in fact be 5 separate winners. Number 1 prize will receive a Game of Thrones Monopoly set, Game of Thrones Shot Glass Sigil set, Daenerys Funko Pop figure, and then a number 2 prize will receive a House Targaryen banner, House Stark banner, Daenerys poster, and a Game of Thrones poster. The third runner-up will receive the Ghost Funko Pop figure, the Mini-Face God calendar, and then the last 2 runner-ups will both receive 2 Amazon gift cards. All you have to do to enter this contest is check the gleam.io link down below in the description. Make sure you're subscribed. Go ahead and turn your notifications on so that way you get alerted every single time I drop Game of Thrones content. And then also, make sure you slap a like and comment on this video down below. Now, just like with anything in A Song of Ice and Fire and a Game of Thrones, when you're debating a theory, you kind of have to have some solid book evidence to back it up. So the main theory that most people go off of when they say that Daenerys cannot conceive a child is in fact a theory. It's not really a theory, but it's a quote that's said to her by Mirri Maz Durr right after Khal Drogo goes into that apallic state. She claims, when the sun rises in the west and sets in the east, when the seas go dry, and when the mountains blow in the wind like leaves, when your womb quickens again, and you bear a living child, then he will return, not before. So everyone pretty much takes away from that quote that Daenerys is no longer gonna have children. She had a stillborn, and that kind of paid for saving Khal Drogo from dying, but Khal Drogo was left in, that vegetative state. Most people take away from that Daenerys is barren and she can in fact no longer have children. Let's kind of dissect that rumor and see if some of those events have actually happened in Game of Thrones Season 7. Now, when you look at Mirri Maz Durr's first line in that prophecy, when the sun rises in the west and sets in the east, that's impossible. That's probably never going to happen, not only on Planet Toast, but also on planet Earth. So you kind of I look at that as more of a metaphor. I like to think that stands for the events that took place at Eastwatch by the Sea. That kind of leads into, you can look at it as the sun kind of did set there. We had that shot of Daenerys on top of the wall, basically, watching the sun rise. So the events that happened at Eastwatch could be referring to that first line, or that first line could just be a throwaway, and, that's physically impossible to happen. And Mirri Maz Durr was trying to get across to Daenerys how impossible it's going to be for her to have children and for Khal Drogo to return from his vegetative state. Now, the second line is where it gets interesting. When the seas go dry and the mountains blow in the wind like leaves. Now, when the seas go dry, I look at that as technically the frozen lake. Now, just hear me out. Technically, there's no way to drain the oceans. There's no way to make all of that water just disappear. So how I look at it is when the Night King froze that lake, that is when the oceans went dry. And that is pertaining into that line in Mirri Maz Durr's prophecy. Then the next one, the mountains will blow in the wind like leaves. That's the wall coming down. The wall is always described in the novels and in the television show as this massive 700-foot structure that has stood for thousands of years. Sounds like a mountain if you ask me. Now that mountain came tumbling down. It blew in the wind like a leaf. Next few lines are, when your womb quickens again and you bear a living child, then he will return, and not before. So you can kind of look at it as when her womb quickens. I don't really know what that means. It's kind of like, I don't have a womb, so I'm not exactly sure. But I like to think that it has something to do with both sex. When Jon and Daenerys hooked up, Daenerys was in love with Jon, Jon is in love with Daenerys, so Daenerys should be willing and accepting to have a child with Jon Snow. That's what I believe that line is pertaining to when Mirri Maz Durr tells Daenerys that Khal Drogo won't return until her womb quickens, she gives birth to a live child, then Khal Drogo will return. So I look at that last part as kind of dark. So Khal Drogo is dead. There's no coming back from the dead. In a sense, there is in Game of Thrones, but it's been long since past for that possibility to happen. Obviously, a Red Priest would have had to show up and would have had to resurrect Khal Drogo right then and there from a burned pile of ashes. It just didn't happen. So, with that being said, the only other way for Daenerys to meet back up with Khal Drogo is to die. Daenerys will likely die during childbirth. Now, maybe Daenerys' brother Rhaegar was onto something, and knowing that in order for a Targaryen to have a successful union where a child will come out not crazy and will actually be able to put in the work to become a great ruler for the kingdom, is to marry a Stark. So that's what happened with Jon Snow. You have this great child that came from this great union between ice and fire. So what if that's not the key for Daenerys to have children and be happy again, and she has to have sex or marry someone from the House Stark lineage? Jon Snow is from House Stark, and he's also part Targaryen. So it's even more so of like their children will be the stallions that mount the world. Speaking of stallions that mount the world, the Dosh Khaleen had actually made a prediction that Daenerys will have a child that eventually mounts the world. Now, they didn't necessarily say that it was going to be from Khal Drogo, that it had to be from Khal Drogo, but it definitely is insinuated that Daenerys' children, her offspring, will be people who rule the world. So if Daenerys has a claim to the Iron Throne and Jon has arguably an even stronger claim to the Iron Throne, their children are almost predestined to conquer Westeros and to rule the Seven Kingdoms. So in conclusion, I think that Daenerys and Jon will in fact have children. Daenerys will likely die during childbirth. Jon Snow will likely die in the fight for the Long Night, and their children will likely be left alive to carry on their legacy or their tradition. Maybe even being raised by Sam. But let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think it's a possibility that since we sort of had some of those events happen in Mirri Maz Durr's prophecy / quote, do you think it's now possible for Daenerys to conceive? Or do you think she's already conceived and she got pregnant during #boat sex? Now, the last thing I want to quickly talk about in this video, because honestly, I might even do a video of it in itself. It didn't seem like some major news, but you know, a few days back, we got some news from Watchers on the Wall that Game of Thrones will in fact be returning to Iceland for Season 8, and it's the middle of winter there. So we obviously know that Game of Thrones Season 8 will include heavily amounts of snow and maybe even some wintry scenes. The only thing that we were told about it was that the filming is going to take place over a few days, and it's likely going to be in February, and that some of the main cast is said to be there. Now, that's what made a red flag go off in my mind. I'm racking my brain. I'm like, okay, so who's been posting on social media? Who has been talking about, maybe tweeting a status about they're doing something in Iceland? Bam! Red flag being even more hilarious because she has red hair. Sansa, Sophie Turner, actually posted on Instagram a few months ago. She posted just a small picture of her in this ice-filled background, and it honestly looks like Iceland. Now, there is a small chopper over there behind her, but honestly, this could have been like a scouting type of thing. Like, now, it's not for sure because we don't know which parts of the main cast members are going to be taking place during this filming, but just hear me out. What if when Jon Snow realizes that the threat is officially close to Winterfell, he decides to send family members, i.e. Sansa, who can't fight, north of the Wall? I know that sounds crazy, but if the White Walkers are coming from north of the Wall, would that not be the safest place in Westeros? Just think about it. Jon Snow's going to want to save his family, and Sansa is not exactly a warrior. Arya can definitely defend herself, but Jon's not going to want to take any risk, and he might even try to send Arya with her. I doubt Arya's going to go, but I definitely think that this is something here. Now, you guys let me know what you think down below. Do you think that Sansa will be sent north of the Wall by Jon in order to keep her safe? Because let's face it, that's the safest place in Westeros. Or do you think that this is just, you know, some kind of like wild goose chase and that there's just going to be some main cast members up there because it's going to be potentially live shots in a battle that's mainly CG, but they need some background footage to show when they're having one of the final battle scenes in Season 8. You guys let me know down in that comment section below. Once again, that article comes to us from Watchers on the Wall, and that's actually linked down below in the description where you can go check that out for yourself and peruse through it. And also, usually this website, along with winteriscoming.net, will be the first ones to post about spoilers. 90% of the time, they'll have their spoilers posted before we even get a video up here on YouTube. So if you want to, make sure you go check out both those websites, make sure you subscribe, and then you turn on your notifications so that way you get alerted from them about the latest and greatest Game of Thrones Season 8 news. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Super special shout out to Terry and Mario. They are the executive producers of these videos, and without them, these videos would not be possible. Also, super special shout out to every single one of my patrons: Lise, Jeremiah, Fred, Nancy, Ann, Amberlynn, Chris, Beth, Rocketman, King Wolf Dom, David Gray, Queen of Maine, Helena von Leinstein, Belladonna, Cater Tot, Juliet, Elder, Enid, Justin Stone Diaz, Darton, Marilyn Miller, Queen Moni, Mel of Winterfell, Sammy Omer, Joe Swag, Lynn Shaw, John Borrowick, and Angel. Without all of y'all, these videos would not be possible, and if anyone watching would like to become a sponsor and show your support to Sir Hunt's reviews, all you have to do is check out the link down below in the description, and that'll take you straight to my Patreon. The like goal for this video will be 150. Let's see if we can't smash through that. I want to thank you all again so much for watching. My name's Mark, and this has been Sir Hunt's Reviews. Don't forget to enter that contest.